Welcome to Revenue Search, Bittensor's #1 live stream. I don't think anyone else does live streams like we do they? Maybe we're #1. Maybe that's what they do, isn't it? That's what clever people do. They identify a really niche market and then they just say, "We're #1." We are Bittensor's #1 live stream this morning.
Well, when you prod around in the dark enough times, you're going to hit something. I think this is what it is.
It's true. That's true. Well, we're back. This is our first. You were away last week in an unknown location.
Yeah, he's went to Malta. Never been.
Now you're telling us.
Yeah. No, it was good. It's weird, like being a British person going somewhere where the service is actually good. Because, like, if you're British and you go to anywhere Spain, like Spain area, the locals hate you. And the service is typically terrible. But literally, we had the best service we've ever had in any hotel, any country. So
I just think you're going to the wrong places. Now, what's interesting is that a week ago, when you were talking about going away, you weren't telling anybody where you were going, were you?
true.
Why? Why? And why's the secretive?
Well, because security. Like my biggest fear is not really being hacked. It's the $5 rent attack. It's the, it's being mugged, etc. So I always carry protection.
My biggest fear is a crocodile underneath my bed. I think that would be terrifying.
Yeah. So so into Malta.
Dreadful. So you kept that to yourself. Didn't tell people where you were going because security, because privacy, which segues nicely, beautifully, almost as if we've orchestrated it and carefully scripted this introductory duologue. Who have we got? Who have we got today? Who's coming on to talk about privacy? And do we need to give our viewers a warning?
Yeah. Well, we made an exception today. So one of our rules when we set up Revenue Search is that we're not going to discriminate. We will interview any subnet owner because this is just a platform or like a foghorn in a town square. Anyone can use it as long as you're a subnet owner. But that one rule is you have to show your face and show your face. And we've had a few subnet owners saying, "Hey, can I come on?" But blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no. However, today I have made an exception. And the reason being is that with this particular subnet, there is a real risk. So it's subnet 113, Taonado. And the non-crypto familiar, there used to be a protocol, or I think it's still kicking around, called Tornado Cash, which is basically a tumbler where you could send, let's say, illicit crypto funds into Tornado Cash. It would tumble it and mix it with other cash, and then you can create a brand new wallet, untraceable, etc. Well, the dev went to jail, and OFAC, otherwise known as OFUC, basically just stamped on hard with Tornado Cash, and to the point where people were sending like dust, a couple of dollars to loads of celebrities and influencers from Tornado Cash, and anyone that received funds from Tornado Cash, their wallets were frozen.
So I did not know all that. What I do know is that this is a privacy situation, and that's why we've made this exception, because we're talking about the importance of privacy, about privacy coins, and that is why we've got Captain Quint joining us.
Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. It is an absolute pleasure. Pleasure to make an exception for you. Let's make this a fantastic episode of Revenue Search. So tell us, if you will, a little bit about you, perhaps, and definitely the subnet.
Yeah. I'll start by saying a longtime Bittensor fan and actively involved in the community for quite some time, probably longer than you think. And we identified a opportunity with the privacy narratives that we see elsewhere, with Monero, with Zcash, with other coins, and basically said, hey, it's time that Bittensor has its own focused, specific version of a privacy product. And I would put those into kind of two buckets. One is a privacy as a service, which would be something like a Tornado Cash protocol. And the other bucket would be a privacy chain, something like Monero or Zcash. It's an entire chain where privacy is the product. It's not just a service that's being sent out there. So Taonado Cash, I see it as a blended kind of the two, but really, we're building the product out of the original shoulders of Tornado Cash and some of the other mixers in privacy protocols that are out there. A little bit further about us. We're a small team. It's a passion project. It's not the only thing that we're working on, but we take it very seriously, and we've come a long way since we started.
Okay, so talk me through what the subnet sets out to achieve. So Siam did a little bit on the theory of the concept in the intro, but talk me through it. Well, what does it do, and who's the audience?
So the audience is everybody in the Bittensor ecosystem who doesn't want prying eyes on what they're doing, right? And I'll actually give this example in the context of DSV. You guys are doing OTC deals. You're taking on positions in different subnet tokens. Everyone watching what you're doing, and you may receive criticism on when you choose to make moves with those positions, right? In any form, and going back to the definition of privacy, Siam, you had your definition there is like not telling people when you go on vacation, right? But what does privacy mean to you guys, right? To us, it means getting to choose when and how and to whom to disclose information. So blockchain is very much transparency from the start, which is a great thing, but everyone can see everything all the time. And what we're simply saying is, hey, can we have ways and products that let you, the privacy is default and privacy is expected and is the norm. And then when it comes to needing to disclose information to another party, you're able to and get the evidence that it's, it is what you're claiming. So I know that's a very high level, but for Taonado Cash specifically, you can think of it as you make a deposit into a one-time deposit into a smart contract. It's like going to the bank and exchanging $1 for a note, a claimable note down the line. And with this note, what you can do at a later time is go back to the bank and get out your dollar. And when you make this deposit, you're using it with I don't want to dive too deep into the cryptography here, but basically you deposit it along with a secret. And then when you go to claim it, you're disclosing part of the secret, so it can't be claimed again out of the mixer. So it's one tau in, one tau out, and there's no way to link the two because there's a secret that you, as the depositor, prove that you know, but don't disclose to everybody. So there's no way to know. In wallet, out wallet. And then the reason that it works is if everybody who's depositing one tau is also withdrawing one tau, there's no way to link them. And then we have different scales of pools. Right now, we only have launched the one tau pool. There's other sizes that are coming, 10, 100, also 0.1. And that's something that we'll launch when we think we're ready. But that's is essentially where we're at.
So I can put a tau in, you mix it up, jumble it around in a big Yahtzee tumbler, and then I'll get my tau back out again, and no one knows that it was. But everyone can see that I've put one in, but they can't see where I've withdrawn it to.
Exactly. When you deposit it, you get a receipt, and the receipt lets you claim it later on. And there's no way for anyone else other than you to know which tau was yours going in. And you're guaranteed to get that one tau going out.
And how long does it stay in the mixer for before I take it out?
It's up to you. So you decide when you make the withdrawal, and there's some strategy around that. Obviously, if you put one tau in and you take it out right away in the next block, an hour later, not really a good mix. And not really a great way of running, running privacy, but I don't control that. We don't control that. It's non-custodial. You use the term like I mix it up. I don't do anything. I've just deployed the smart contract. I've made the technology, some of it to make it easier, and I think maybe now we can get into why is this a subnet, and why not just launch this on the Bittensor EVM? So again, this only works at scale. You need thousands of Tau in a pool constantly every single day, Tau in, Tau out, to make this effective, right? The more deposits, a bit more inflow outflow you have every day, the higher the security factor is, the higher the privacy factor is. So what do we incentivize? We incentivize miners to make transactions that look like legitimate user ones all the time, and therefore increase the amount of baseline transactions that are occurring through the protocol.
Okay, so as a user, I would deposit a Tau, leave it in for a little bit, and then take it out again. As a miner, I do exactly the same thing.
Precisely. Yeah. Except you also earn a little bit of incentive for doing so.
Okay, what's the incentive for the miners?
The subnet token, but the additional incentive is that you are also yourself as a miner acting as a user and getting the privacy benefits of using the protocol as well. So not only are you mining it and contributing capital, but you're also getting this benefit of your capital is now private as well.
Okay, I've got that. So how many miners have you got at the moment?
In terms of active miners, we're about 25. It does fluctuate quite a bit. We did also see to date we've had almost 800 Tau go through the pool, which is a little bit more than I was expecting, to be honest, with the 1 Tau. So that means almost 800 Tau has been deposited, and the majority of it has been then taken out. It's pretty early. People are experimenting. If I was in a miner's position, I'd be like, who are these guys? I'm going to try it a few times, get a feel for it. You'll see the uptake, and it's in that initial scaling phase at the moment.
Okay, I've got that. I understand how that works. So how many? How do you scale this to 10 Tau and then 100 Tau?
So you provide additional incentives, and you start to basically, it's just how big is the bucket, right, of Tau. So when you open up a 10 Tau pool or a 100 Tau pool, you need 10 times as much liquidity to make that happen. You need 100 times as much liquidity to make that happen. But I think a lot of people want to move capital with size. So these 10 Tau and the 100 Tau pools make a lot more sense. There's other factors like the fee structure, which we haven't got into yet. The larger the deposit, from a percentage standpoint, the cheaper it is to make those deposits and withdrawals. And then, of course, the other side is there's some gas involved. You have to produce this on the Bittensor EVM. So there's some gas, and I would say the gas is relatively expensive now to do operations within anything on the Bittensor EVM. But it is that's something that we can hopefully work with the OTF to change. To lower them.
Yeah.
And then the one, what I'm trying to say basically is the 0.1 Tau pool. It's just impractical with the gas fees right now, so we decided not to launch it. But the 1 Tau, the 10 Tau, 100 Tau, so on, it's a little more practical.
So how much does it cost me if I run 1 Tau through? How much do I get out?
Right. So right now the gas fees are between $3 and $5 depending on the price of Tau, and then our revenue model, we're expecting between 2.5% to 5%, depending on the deposit size of the deposit.
So so 2.5% to 5%. So it's as simple as the more Tau gets tumbled, the higher your revenue.
Precisely.
But the bigger chunks, so a 10 Tau or 100 Tau, the margins will be slightly less per Tau, but there'll be more Tau.
You got it.
Can you tumble 10 Taus and 1 Taus in the same tumbler?
They're separate pools. They're separate, like the shielded pools.
Why?
The
Why do they have to be shielded pools?
you need going back to the bank analogy, if you got that 1 Tau coin, you're putting it into a big bucket with everybody else's 1 Tau coin, right? We've just, from an architecture standpoint, the way that these work is you just have a separate bucket for the 10 Tau coins and a separate bucket for the 100 Tau coins. It's always a multiple of the base denomination. It was always going to be 100, 200, 300, 400, so on Tau sitting in there for the 100 Tau pool. And this is just generally how it works. Now, one other area of revenue, and this isn't as obvious, and I think this is also what's very different about our vision for privacy products versus others, is people are depositing hundreds of Tau, thousands of Tau. That's just capital that's sitting, not doing anything. In Taonado, there was times where there's millions of ETH sitting in there. That's, proof of stake wasn't live at the time, but now it is. The tensor creates a unique opportunity to do something with that capital while it's sitting in a shielded pool. If not trading it, but putting it into root for staking, right? Or eventually, we're going to do subnet tokens as well. Again, want to roll that out responsibly and with collaboration with subnet owners too. But when you deposit subnet tokens, you wouldn't want to forego the yield. So there's a revenue opportunity there for us to essentially split the yield with depositors and allow them to have it shielded for however long they see fit. And some of the revenue comes from that APY.
Okay.
Which is something that I don't believe has been done before across any privacy products. And Bittensor uniquely allows us to do that.
So you're going to have the primary revenue stream will be charging people that want to use the mixer, and then the secondary revenue stream will be on the back of the Tau that's held in the mixer for the duration of that period.
Exactly, the APY harvesting, you will so-called APY harvesting. Exactly.
How on the alpha side, if people want to run their alpha through the tumbler, how do they do that? I don't know how you can send. I know there is some subnet alpha that you can transfer wallet to wallet, but most people have just got staked alpha, haven't they?
Yeah. So without diving too deep into the Bittensor EVM, you can make wrapped and staked liquid products through that. And there's an initiative right now to make a staked wrapped alpha token, and it's a unique token for every subnet, and it's a thing that allows you to transfer that into a pool and receive on the other end. And I also, the Bittensor EVM, I think, is critically and sadly underutilized. There's so much that can be done in there. There's so much DeFi tooling that exists from the Ethereum stack that teams can be building and bringing in. When we started, we have this concept of a wrapped Tau contract. There is 8 wrapped Tau, and we brought that number up to over 2,500 wrapped Tau as we incentivized people to bring capital over to it and really helped onboard a lot of capital into the Bittensor EVM, and really saw some uptake. I think back then there was maybe 100, maybe 200 transactions being done a day. Now there's probably 10x that, a couple thousand a day. The adoption is coming in, and that was also one of our initial hurdles. Was they were talking to a miner or a user who's never put a single Tau into a Bittensor EVM before, never mind into a shielded protocol.
Okay. And my assumption is that the miners, there's not like a no-code miner option here.
Not at the moment. We are working on a GUI to make it easy for the typical Tao holder to just go to a website, connect their wallet, and then use this. But we wanted to embrace this kind of cyberpunk feel to it as well, and really have it as this tool where you had to download the CLI, you had to really know what you were doing, and there's a little bit of pain and suffering to get started. I think that's a kind of a rite of passage within Bittensor in some cases. But once you have that set up, it is surprisingly easy to get going within Taonado.
And how much am I going to make if I become a Taonado miner and I put a Tau in every day? What am I making now?
It depends on how much other Tau is in there. I actually don't know the numbers offhand. It's something we get asked all the time, but it's relatively simple to calculate. You look at the incentive we receive, by the divided by the amount of Tau you've put in, multiplied by 365. But it is more than root staking. I will say that. I know that with absolute certainty.
Oh, so I don't make money on a one-off on the transaction, on the deposit and withdrawal. Do I make money as a miner for the length of time that my Tau is in the pool?
Yes, exactly. Not the shielded pool, but within the you make capital, or you make a return based off of how many deposits you are making. Yes, we don't know when you make the withdrawal, right? I don't know if you or how long you keep it in there.
Okay, so I could put 10 Tau in over 5 days and just leave it in there for a few weeks, and I'm making money the whole time that I leave it in.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's not being an active miner there, though. Is it
Not really.
You have to constantly create brand new wallets and then constantly mix things around, or
Yep, exactly. We've moved Tau around.
so the average. Sorry, Captain, go for it.
I was just saying we want to that's ultimately what you want to incentivize is liquidity moving around in these base transactions that you can't tell if it's a user or not. And we didn't dive into it as well. But the other side of this is there's some intelligence around how good of a job you're doing as a miner. This is something we haven't had a chance to build out, but it's in our roadmap. To kind of this idea of a red team and a blue team, ones that are looking to try and link transactions together, and then a red team that is actively trying to move capital around. And you create this dynamic where over time they get better and better and better at creating what looks like legitimate user transactions.
Again,
in
within your own subnet, pretty much.
Exactly, right. And then I had mentioned at the start, I had said you have privacy as a service. That's actually something that I think a lot of other privacy mixing protocols out there could use, and something that I haven't seen incentive applied to. So hopefully that's some cool IP that we can build out as a subnet and potentially export from Bittensor elsewhere.
We are a red team and a blue team today, Siam. This is unbelievable.
They're nearly failed.
I had a bad hair day this morning. I put my cap on, and then I'd logged on this morning. I was like, "Holy shit! This is the Bittensor merch department." I was like, "Off." Bit.
That's made me forget my question now. What was my question there?
Scans within the subnet.
No, I can't remember what it was.
Do you mind if I do some stickman English? I think this
Of
would
course.
because this is how my brain works, and others have said that's helpful. So can you down my lord?
Whoa, infinity scroll.
Yeah, right. Let's open my doodle pad and let's scroll all the way to the bottom. So the way my head sort of sees this is that there's this big old wall, and you have the average user over here, and they have one Tau, and this is Taonado, so this is 113, and in here you have actually you got two pools, haven't you? You got the shielded pool and then the sort of chilled out jacuzzi. And so inside the shielded pool you have all these miners creating all sorts of transactions. This person puts their one Tau in, and then they get this special key, and on the other side, so this is, there's people watching, so I can't draw, but there's eyes here. But here, everything is clear.
So interesting set of eyes you've drawn there.
They look like food. So does it also create? So do you have to create a new wallet? So this person, he's on the other side of the wall as well. Does he create a new wallet, or do you create?
They should. They should have to create a new wallet. They don't have to. But if you're using it correctly, yes, they would create a new wallet.
Okay, so you create a new wallet, and then you plug in your secret handshake code, and then a fresh 1 Tao untrackable ends in your brand new wallet.
Exactly. Yes, and they're significantly happier after they do that.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Now it's accurate.
So what about this chilled out pool over here? So how does this work?
So this is it's called the wrapped Tau pool. And this is, if you're familiar with ETH, there's rules on when you can send ETH to another wallet and how you can pull from it. Wrapping it just makes that process a little bit easier. It's exchangeable one-to-one, and it's not a contract that we control or had deployed. It's something that was forked from the wrapped ETH contract, and it's essentially just a wrapped liquid version. I don't know if that, if somebody is not familiar with EVM and why those wrapped tokens exist, it might be a touch confusing, especially because there's also another wrapped Tau that exists on Ethereum. But so anyway, that pool was 8 Tau when we started. It's significantly larger now, and it's something that we're we also incentivize because the wrapped Tau allows us to easily receive and send through the shielded pools.
Okay.
And it also gives people familiar. It also gives people familiar with the Bittensor EVM. But sorry, I cut you off.
No. Cool. So the miners within the shielded pool, are they also having to spool up fresh new wallets and then ping stuff around as well?
And exactly, especially if they are going back to that blue team, red team. When we get there, if they want to be doing a good job at this, they need to be pretty into wallets that look like they're legitimate user wallets.
Okay. I mean, how many new wallets a day is this pool creating? I mean, it must be huge, because I guess the miners are algorithmically doing it.
Yeah, so like I said, we had seen about 800 Tau be put through the pool so far. I don't have the stats actually on how many new wallets were created, but that would be interesting to get.
Cool. Okay. And how long until you're opening up the 10 Tau, 100 Tau type stuff? Because I'm imagining, like wallets like 5Girl, where everyone's watching that wallet. This person has like no privacy.
Exactly. And I think there's an argument that they might not want the privacy. They actually like the attention, but not everybody wants that, right? So when is the 1 Tau and the 100 Tau pool opening? What I don't want to happen is to fragment the liquidity. I don't want to, have, say, 1,000 Tau in the 1 Tau pool. We open up the 10 Tau, and all of a sudden a bunch of that migrates over. So what we've actually set it as the total incentive. This is why the burn percentage of the Subnet is so high right now. We're trying to bootstrap 5,000 Tau of liquidity between the wrapped Tau and the shielded pool, and then that gives us some confidence that we can move over to the 10 and the 100 pool. We're not too far off. Hopefully we'll get there.
So actually, you need some miners or /LPs that have chunky amounts of Tau that are happy to allocate to you guys.
Exactly, and to boost privacy within Bittensor, absolutely. But that was a great diagram. That's exactly. With people then asking us to make a demo video, I might just clip that and make that our demo video.
So if you have got an LP that's looking to create chunky amounts of Tau, what comfort can we give them that their Tau is in safe hands while it's in the pool?
Love that question. So the reptile part, I'll start there. That's pretty much the first smart contract ever deployed to Ethereum that was widely used. And it's something that not just ourselves have used, other projects, Subnet 65, when they did their initial Subnet offering, I think it was called, they used the same protocol, the same smart contract. It's something that, is as battle tested as it can be in crypto. And then for our shielded tool, it's essentially a very hard fork of the original Taonado Cash protocol, which has received piles of audits and has been deployed for many, many years and has seen a lot of activity. We've made very minor changes, mostly around allocating incentive and how to score miners making deposits. Not around the actual core protocol itself. It's also all open source and verified on the Tau Stats EVM piece. You can see that what's actually deployed there and go. I look, I can't just sit here and say to you, hey, trust me, right? That's not the way that this works. It's all open source. You go take a look at the contracts and see how it goes, and see the 800 deposits we've had to date, and see people successfully pulling it out on the other side, and hopefully convince yourself. But don't take my word for it.
Difficult to get video testimonials from, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it. Is we look at these privacy pools. Everyone agrees privacy is important, but then when it comes to talking about it, it can be a bit of a taboo, and no one wants to admit that they've used it. But the need's there. It's very, if you see the excitement around Zcash and other ones, it's clearly there.
Yeah, Zcash has gone parabolic.
Absolutely.
Your early example here of somebody that might want to use Taonado SV. What do you think DSB do? What we would benefit from hidden wallets rather than.
It's around the scrutiny of it, and I think, again, you guys, you want to have the public perception that you're doing what's best for the ecosystem, right? And I think there's sometimes when people have all of the information, they make assumptions that isn't necessarily true, right? They can see stuff moving around. They don't think that. There's just some transactions where, because they don't know everything, they make assumptions about it, and sometimes that lack of information leads to further speculation. Whereas if privacy is default, and you guys are saying, hey, here's the information we're disclosing and how we're doing it, and here's the terms on the deal, and here's how we're planning to hold it, and here's the evidence of what we've done. I think it makes it a lot better.
Yeah, our approach has always been full transparency. We do everything visibly. Everyone can see our wallet, and we tell everyone exactly what we've done shortly after we've done it. So it was an interesting example to pull, really.
I know. Surely, if someone is being watched, or a bunch of their wallets being watched, and then all of a sudden they're now interacting with Taonado Cash, does that not just make them look guilty?
That's the privacy narrative that we hope to change, because that's not necessarily the case, right? Again, we're back to privacy. Why didn't you tell everybody where you're going for a vacation, right? The definition of our artificial privacy, you had to disclose when and to whom and how to disclose information, and that should be the default. And in a blockchain, most chains are not that by default, right? So you imagine a system where, and this is also, let's just take it back outside of Taonado for a second. You have a top miner and a subnet. What kind of scrutiny do they get? They get DDoS attacks. They get people who are constantly going after them. Imagine if that was a little bit more obscured, and you couldn't see exactly where the incentive was going, but you knew it was going to the top scorers in a subnet. You couldn't see how much capital that they were accumulating from their efforts in the same way that you wouldn't be able to see how much money a vendor is making at some other company, right? That they're working for. And then you will see when they choose to sell or allocate capital. And I think there's some miners who might want that privacy by default.
Yeah, I can understand why big whales might want an element of privacy. I agree with you, Captain, on Five Girl and how he might like the attention and the eyes of the wallet. But if he wants to partially liquidate a position, it's very, very difficult to do that without hurting a subnet that he's in size, because it's going to have a big impact. So having all eyes on the wallet isn't always a big win there. But then if he starts to push stuff through a mixer, he's got something to hide. Yeah.
Again, hopefully we can change that perception, because it's not necessarily that should not be the default perception, the default assumption.
Okay, so how do we go around changing that perception? And what work are you doing building a narrative that says privacy is a positive and everybody wants privacy in different areas of their lives, and it shouldn't necessarily be any different on chain? What are you doing to overcome that?
Here in the trenches, doing podcasts, talking to you guys, building products that we believe in, that we would use ourselves, and we say, hey, we don't have this, and why not? Why doesn't it exist? Who's going to build it if not us? And it's so important to us that we bring we're just the message of people saying, hey, what would a private Bittensor or more private Bittensor ecosystem look like? How do I participate in that? Should I care? And it's not it's a bit of a thankless venture sometimes, but it's a product that and a mission that we hold very dearly.
What about other subnets? So is there a use case for other subnets?
Well, besides the support of a subnet to have a shield of their own, a shielded pool of their own for their subnet token, there's a couple other use cases that we were chatting about. Subnet 65, the VPN one. This obviously when you're touching the Taonado protocol, you might want to also be on a VPN. You might want to not use the NordVPNs of the world, and potentially use that and have it directly integrated into our subnet. Beyond that, there's some of the subnets that are doing bridging of assets, and going back to providing liquidity and privacy to other chains and to other mixing protocols. And when we have this red team, blue team approach, that maybe we can prove that it works, and hopefully we can work with some of the other subnets to tap into other networks and other protocols, and can use some of their bridging tech and so on.
So a few weeks ago, when I reached out to you guys in your Telegram, my main question I had for you was, what's stopping OFAC doing the same thing to Taonado?
So after that, it's a fair question. The more you look into that case, our determination was basically the only thing Mr. Storm got incorrect was probably the timing. If he had waited a little bit later for a different administration, basically he was made an example out of for a bunch of different reasons. Since then, 2 or 3 of his charges have been dropped. We strongly believe, along with a lot of other folks, that the last one will also be dropped. The other question, and this is something that I think is quite damning if it wasn't dropped, is essentially it says, hey, if you're a developer of an open source protocol, you can be put in the crosshairs here, and that's worrying. And everyone in Bittensor should be saying, hey, wait a second, what? And that doesn't seem like it's correct either. So we've got to, as a community, we have to support that fight and say, hey, that's not what we're about. You have to choose as well. You can't be selective with privacy. It's either privacy for all or privacy for none. You can't have a protocol where you decide, oh, we're not going to support that transaction, or oh, we're not going to, we're going to freeze funds here. You have to be careful with that. Mm-hmm. And again, it's we're a day after a $120 million balancer exploit where that capital is now running and going all over the place. And you have to ask yourself, what is the correct form of governance to limit the damage that something like that happens, or the damage that something like that causes.
Okay. So in terms of the money, how is value driven back to the alpha holder then?
So in an ideal world, again, this is all smart contract based. Someone makes a withdrawal, you can just automate that. You can really just do a swap every single time someone makes a withdrawal and they pay that to 5%. It just goes right, converts immediately to an alpha token, and then it's burned right away. That's not, to be clear, that's not live in this very moment. Our 1 Tau pool has no fees for the time being, but the future pools will. But that's the plan. I'm not going to send it to an owner wallet and then buy it later. I'm just going to do it all automated.
Why burn and not set up an alpha treasury? Because then every time you do a buyback, you'll be building this alpha treasury, which then has yield. Surely you can then use that yield as extra, payments to miners or.
I'm open to it. I was just starting with burning. I think for us, we're not looking to have additional capital at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so once your bigger capabilities come up, 10, 100 Tau, etc., that's going to attract a lot more wallets. Like 5Girl couldn't even use you if he or she or they wanted right now.
Exactly.
But okay, and then the more capabilities you have, the more inflows that you'll have, the more fees. Okay, and then more buybacks. So that's where that comes in. How long until the 10 Tau pool is ready again?
We need to bootstrap a little bit more liquidity. I had mentioned the goal. We're hoping for 5,000 Tau into the protocol, and then I think we're at a point where we're able to go that. No, it might be a bit of a chicken and the egg problem where just the 1 Tau increment is too difficult to go, so we might launch it sooner rather than later. As in, there's no like a technical reason that we can't launch it. It's just you change a number and deploy a contract, right?
Got it. And so let's say someone wanted to give you 5,000 Tau to help get going faster. Where do they just put that in the unshielded pool and just get a little bit of APY?
Yeah, they would ideally also be making deposits into the 5,000 Tau into the 10 Tau or other larger pools as well. It's not just Civet and Park yet.
Okay, cool.
Quite a lot of work to do, though, isn't there, to deposit the 5,000s into the 1s and the 10s?
It would be a lot of work. Yeah, we've got for sure. Notes to keep track of. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I get that. Okay. Well, fine. Is there a question that you think that we should have asked that we haven't asked?
Not really. I have one other kind of cool thing. I think it's a Bittensor first that we've architected. We've actually done our validation all within the Bittensor EVM as well. So there isn't a validator to run. It all runs on chain. And what we mean by that is it looks at the smart contracts for deposits and immediately figures out like who did what deposit and how much capital you've contributed and submits the scoring. So there is no like validator to run. It's kind of cool. And we've set it up so that anybody in the community can run the validator by just hitting this smart contract. And then it calculates the scores and submits it for miners. And it actually gives that, if that person who submits the transaction is also a miner, they actually get a bit of a boost in incentive as well. It's kind of it's a kind of a weird quirk to our subnet, but it's something that I don't think had been done before within Bittensor. And just also asks the question about, we're trying to make our protocol as defensible as possible, so we don't necessarily need a validator. Right? We don't need the support of all the validators. We can just run it on chain. Just need the capital allocated towards us.
Okay, I don't think I necessarily really understand that. But what we're saying is that because the work that the miners do is simply managed by a smart contract mechanism, there's no requirement for validation because it's in a smart contract. So there's
Exactly.
no validator.
Yeah, it just runs within our infrastructure that runs on the EVM.
Okay. So, but on a normal subnet, there's revenue flowing in the direction of the validator, isn't there?
Yes. So in ours, the revenue from the validator, there's no take on the key, so it just goes right back to all the stakers.
So it goes back to the stakers. Goes back to the
the holders, the end stakers. So
okay. Got it. So if I hold Taonado Alpha, I benefit from the buyback and burns from the revenue, and I also benefit from what would be the validator.
it's no different than right now if you're staking to any validator. It's just that the validator there's only one of them, and it just runs on chain. I'm almost regret bringing it up. It's kind of a cool tech decision that we made. It doesn't really have any impact outside of that.
Listen, I wish this was a cool tech podcast, but it isn't. So we draw a stick then, and even then, I don't understand what's going on.
Fair enough.
Cool. All right. Well, exciting. Anything else you want to talk about here?
No, it's good. I was just thinking with these new emissions changes, it's net tau inflow, etc. So the thing that my mind is constantly pondering on is how is this new change going to affect all of the different subnets? And I keep coming to the conclusion that like 8 out of 10 of the top 10 are absolutely buggered in terms of emissions, because it's all about that consistent net tau inflow over that 5-day period. How is town? So that question is now being pointed in my head towards 113.
Yeah.
How are you guys going to maintain a positive net tau inflow, like a consistent one?
Yeah. So continue to deposits, hoping that folks will continue to use our product, and in ensuring that. And unfortunately, we don't get when people make a deposit itself, it doesn't count towards our emissions our subnet. But when that fee comes through, and on the withdrawal side of it, that is technically a buy, which would be a increase to emissions there, because there's an inflow into that LP from the fees from all of our withdrawals. And I think our outflows are relatively low compared to, we don't have huge compute costs, that we don't have huge validation costs that I have mentioned. So I think it's interesting from that perspective. We're essentially piggybacking off of the chain itself to host all those all that compute and all of it.
Cool.
And then just more broadly, because you've been in Bittensor for a long time and seen a very good understanding of it, which subnets are you really bullish on?
all other 127 of them.
Okay.
Which I know is a non-answer, but I'm bullish on Bittensor.
Yeah. As are we. Cool. Well, I think that wraps us up, isn't it?
Yeah. The guest question. Sorry.
These are questions that we've had on YouTube and X.
King Dallas, it's live. And then we covered all of them, really.
People really just talking about your t-shirt. That's all I can see.
Yeah. Well, Jansen, thank you. That was quintessentially classy.
I love it. Thanks, guys, for doing this and making the exception, making this happen.
That is our pleasure. Thank you for being so open with us on all things Taonado. We appreciate it. I've enjoyed that very, very much. We will be back with another revenue search. But Captain, thanks for your time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, folks.